Viewers, welcome to the leadership lecture series, which we have initiated some weeks back. My name is Sabo Ibrahim Sodangi. I'm a chemical engineer. I have worked in 5 or 6 places or organizations, spending about 30 years, 20 years of the last 20 years in the top management position. Therefore, I feel I have the experience and the knowledge about leadership to talk about the problems that I have observed in all the places I worked. I started with ABU, as I have been telling you, and shortly after I moved to Federal Superphosphate Fertilizer Company, and then from there I moved to Ajak Steel Company. From there, the ministry transferred me to National Iron Ore Mining Company, and from I applied for Director General, the Pioneer Director General of Gidonia Jaya Katsina, and thereafter I went back to Jakarta. So these 5 places that I worked in, I have observed one thing in common to most of them, and that is most of them are not functioning. And this worries me, and I'm sure it worries a lot of people. Why are these places not functioning? We'll go into that later. But starting with the fertilizer, Federal Superphosphate Fertilizer, I have observed 4 or 5 mistakes made. The first mistake was that the past management that was employed were not experienced in chemical or fertilizer plants. They never worked there, so they don't know what should go in there in terms of personnel. So the other mistake was that the first pioneer staff, operating staff of the plant, were sent to Japan for training. There were engineers among them, there were technicians, there were operators. They gave them one type of course, one type of training, which is very wrong. Because engineers, the job of engineer is not to run a plant, it is to design it. So that was the first mistake. The second mistake made was when the Japanese management team were leaving, because after the commissioning of the plant, they entered into an agreement with Nissan Chemicals to provide the management team that was to run for 2 years. After those 2 years, either they will renew it or they look for other management. And they decided to look for other management. And unfortunately, that is where the third mistake was made. Because these people didn't have any experience in running a plant, a chemical plant or fertilizer plant, they decided to go to India and just bring anybody they wanted. And these people didn't know anything about running fertilizer or chemical plants. They employed a production manager and a maintenance manager. What they should have done was to engage the services of a consultant there was no need for them even to go to India. They could have put up an international advert looking for anybody with any experience they needed. They would specify it. And that way they would have got the best. But because they didn't know, and they made that blunder. The fourth mistake that I have observed is that this plant was very small. Right from the beginning, we have realized that it would not meet the needs of Nigerian farmers. As at that time, I think they were importing about 2 million tons of fertilizer every year, the federal government. We were producing only 100,000 tons of fertilizer on only one type, superphosphate. Although superphosphate is good for some crops like groundnut and cotton, but it's not enough because the major nutrients are only phosphate. All of phosphorus was met. As for nitrogen and potassium, we have to look for it elsewhere. So from that, I tried to persuade the management that we need to plan for expansion. Unfortunately, they didn't think that government would accept that proposal, so they didn't pursue it. So um, now the fifth mistake made later on, of course, after this management was changed, uh, now they brought in, initially they brought in a chemist to run as general manager. When he failed, they brought in an accountant, and things just went on getting worse. And it was at that stage that I decided, since I couldn't work as a professional engineer with practicing engineering, that is what is supposed to be. But so I decided to go and do an MBA in Clarkson University in the USA. After I came back, that was when I found they had already engaged a consultant for the expansion program. Unfortunately, this consultant didn't know anything. The person they sent, he was not even a chemical engineer. He told me he was a chemist, so he didn't know what to do. He was asking me what was wrong with the plant. I said, well, that's why they are paying you, so that you tell us what is wrong. In any case, what he didn't understand was that we are not just concerned about the plant itself. We are talking about expansion. So with all these mistakes, perhaps it's better to sit down and think about what caused all this. I believe it's all because of bad leadership at the top, at the very top, and there was no continuation. If you want to get good leadership, as I've been saying, we need to go down to grassroots. We should have a grassroots approach to selection of leadership. The annoying thing is that when you employ a clerk or a messenger, you give him a test, you then interview him to see if he's suitable. Unfortunately, when we look for president, who will be governor, who will be senator, there is no such test, there's no such exam. It's only a few individuals who, because they have money, they sit down in one room and decide whom they will choose as a candidate for leadership. We should find a way of installing good leadership from grassroots. I keep saying this, and I suggested that we should have what the Americans call political action committee that will be based from ward level right up to federal, so that right from there we filter out the bad guys, and the good ones, the committee will pursue their candidature and support them financially and economically if necessary. Now, I think for now we have to stop here. But in the meantime, I would like, if you enjoyed this lecture, please share with your friends and anybody else you think should, because the more people we get involved, the easier, the more possible it is for us to start grassroots politics. The more, because this is it's for us to get as many people as possible to join this effort and start from there. Also, if you have any comments, I would appreciate it if you send the comment, because that way I will know what you think about what we are talking about. Thank you.